All right, McKenna, thank you so much for being here today. This has been an absolutely amazing experience for all of us, I'm sure. Um, and also thank you to all our panelists for all of your enlightening questions. That really gave us a great flow for tonight. So before we get started with the Q&A, I just want to wrap up a little bit and summarize some of the points that came up. Tiku had a moment where he brought up his unique story. And to me, that really stood out because that gives him the opportunity to stand out from other candidates. And I thought that was a wonderful thing to bring up for our audience today so they know how they can stand out from the competition. We also spoke about how using social media for research is a great way to get a step up as well, that you can use LinkedIn, go on Facebook, and basically just make sure that you're putting your true self out there. That'll help you in further interviews. Embracing interviews as conversations, of course. It really calms those nerves. And following up with thank yous. How important it is just to put in that little extra bit of touch that helps you to be remembered. We also spoke about negotiating your salary. And it's not always the dollar amount, but also to keep what kind of benefits that you get in mind as well that might help you in growing your career and getting more education and other things as well. We spoke about rejection and how important it is to ask for feedback so that you can make better choices in the future when you're interviewing. And also being authentic with your skills and experience, I thought was a really great one to bring up because so many of us have those moments where we're asked for skills and we're not quite sure how to deal with that. So I really enjoyed your response and having that willingness to go online and either teach yourself those skills or just being open to learning and growth. So now we're going to get to that point where we're sending out a poll. You should have received the poll by now. So if you can just take a moment to fill it out with your evaluation of tonight, that would be incredibly helpful. We'll use your feedback for future webinars. And now we are going to dive into your questions, the exciting part of the evening. One of the exciting parts of the evening, of course. All right, are we ready?
Yeah, I hope I have the right answers for everyone.
Of course you will. You're the pro here. So our first question is from Julianne Keller, and she asks, for someone in college applying to internships and or just coming out of college, applying to your first jobs, how can you balance demonstrating eagerness to learn how showing confidence in the skills you've acquired thus far and that you can lend to a particular position? It seems it could be easy to come across as disjointed.
Okay, so if I'm understanding how to show that you're eager for the job while also showing that you have sort of an expertise and that you know what you're doing.
Yes.
I think it's important to highlight the fact that you want to make that transition, right? That you have this base knowledge that you've worked on for the past 3-4 years, and now you want to make the transition into putting that into practice to execute what you've learned, and to figure out what are the sort of shortcuts or what are the downfalls that people already working in the industry have found. I think we can all agree that the ideas that we learn in college and the application of them in the workplace are different just because workplace stresses and sort of balancing your whole life, it really gives a new context to the things that you've learned. And so I think the best way to communicate that you're sort of eager for this job, but you also have enough experience to add to the team is to highlight the projects that you've done and to sort of say, now I'm ready to make the transition into really applying my knowledge and making sure that I can get these projects done faster in a more efficient way, and learning from the people around me to make sure that I am doing it in a way that makes this company proud. I think all companies sort of have their own philosophy, their own point of view that you can say that is unique to them that you want to learn and want to put into practice in your own career. And so that willingness to learn, that willingness to put in work for a company is always going to be something that they want to bring on to their team to really add value and add new enthusiasm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, I think that's perfect. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, please keep adding your questions into the chat window. We're monitoring everything right now. I had a question for you. So a lot of times before an interview, whether it's on the phone or in person, I think a lot of us, I know I do, sometimes get those nerves.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips on how to kind of calm yourself before getting into an interview?
Sure. I'll go through what I do. Maybe that'll help some people. I pick a song. My song is a song by Prince. Yours can be whatever you like. It's one that's not, I don't like to go into interviews all like hype and have that like a lot of energy, because I think once you sit down, those nerves kick in and you tend to be more fidgety. You tend to sort of maybe ramble if you're like me. So it's a mix between getting excited, feeling familiar, feeling a song that I know and that feels like a normal everyday. And then I like to spend sort of the car ride over there rehearsing ways that I want to answer questions. The best way to take the nerves out of something is to make it feel old, not make it feel unknown or something that you've never done before. So to take sort of the air out of what you're nervous about is to just do it over and over again, right? So that you feel practiced, you feel like you've got a grasp on what you're trying to communicate to these people. And then really just sort of remind yourself that you've done all of this work. You've researched the company, you've practiced your best answers, you've got your thoughtful questions, you've done everything that you can do to this point, and now it's up to them to decide if you're the perfect candidate for them. And that advice doesn't always help everyone, but I think sort of understanding that you've done the best you can and now it's out of your hands can sometimes be calming. Sometimes it's a little scary, but I think it's calming.
Well, thanks for that tip. Honestly, I've never thought about keeping a song in my mind before. And that's definitely something I'm going to try next time. You know, and Prince is probably going to come to mind first now that we spoke about this. But I mean, what a great suggestion. I think that's a great way to kind of just calm yourself down, because music, you know, connects us to so many different things and passions. So great tip. Thank you. And another question that we have is, what was your inspiration for writing this book?
Sure. That's a great question. I graduated at a time, it was 2010, 2011. So it wasn't necessarily right at 2008 where everyone was freaking out and everyone was telling us that we were never going to get a job, but it was still a pretty bleak job market. And I talk about this in the introduction to the book, where I didn't have anything that made me stand out. I sort of had average experience, average college, but I would go to interviews and I would be offered these positions, and I would look to my friends and my coworkers and they would have such a hard time landing these interviews and feeling good when they walked out of interviews. And so I started to think about what was different, how I was approaching it, what made it easier for me to do these interviews than other people. And like I said at the very beginning, approaching interviews as conversations instead of just like, oh my goodness, I have to have the right answer or this is all going to fall apart. Really understanding that these are people who want to know if you're pleasant enough to work next to for 8 hours a day. And they want to ask interesting questions. You know, you're spending an hour with them. So telling stories in a compelling way makes it feel less burdensome for them. And so with all of that in mind, I started to sort of give that advice to my friends to say, like, look, it's just a conversation. It's about you. You're the only person who knows your own story. So you're the expert. Really helped them out. And then I thought, you know, do my best to spread it to as many people as possible. And so that's sort of where it came from. The book is designed to be more of a workbook where you can write your ideas right inside the book, and then you can return to them as you progress through your career, as you go through different job interviews. So I really wanted to give something practical to people to use.
Great. I like how in your book you have an area too where you can fill in your own stories and really kind of build this up for yourself.
Right.
So incredibly helpful. I'm sure all your friends appreciate you writing the book, and I know that we all really do too. So let's see, we have a bunch more questions. Jose Garcia asks, for recent grads, how do you network with people in the industry, or how do you find a mentor?
Sure. I think the really great thing is that you have the opportunity right now to have online mentors that may not be somebody that you know personally. There are so many smart people out there publishing articles and even videos. Some people have online classes that you can take. There are so many resources for you to find online where you can really find a person you connect with, a person who gives their message in a way that you find interesting, and following them, taking their advice. And you can sort of slowly build by like commenting on their articles or tweeting at them, sending them emails. You can sort of make yourself a network of online mentors. And that's really helpful if you want to gain skills that come with experience. The other thing that I find really helpful is online groups. There are so many Facebook groups, so many email chains. That sounded outdated. There's so many like email newsletters that you can be a part of that really give you a lot of information and people to connect with. I think that some of us have sort of maybe in-person meeting anxieties of being in those social situations. So this whole new, these avenues for you to reach online where you can do it from your phone wherever you are is really helpful and gives you sort of access to a lot more information that we've ever had.
Okay, perfect. And the next part of this of the question is, and how do you get an interview for an internship when applications that are online have such a large volume? So I'm sure just so many apply for the same internships, the same jobs. How do you make yourself stand out?
I think a major part of this is a cover letter. I think that resumes, especially if it's sort of an entry-level job or a job that doesn't require years of experience and diverse sort of projects you've worked on, the resumes tend to look similar. And putting stories in your resume instead of just plain bullet points with numbers, really telling them who you are and your thought process that went into each of those projects that you've listed are important. I think the cover letter gives you an opportunity to become a person, which is so helpful when you are an HR representative looking at thousands of resumes. The one person who takes the extra effort to be humorous or be thoughtful or contribute a new perspective is really helpful. And sometimes people just forego the cover letter altogether. So it really gives you a leg up when you take those seriously and don't make them sort of copies of each other, but really personalize it to that role, to that company. Again, goes back to showing initiative, showing how much effort you want to put into this and how much enthusiasm you have for this company. So I think any opportunity that you have to tell stories rather than to just give information is going to make you more interesting to the people looking at these resumes.
Okay, and then kind of following up on that, when you have a resume, we've heard before about using keywords on your resume. Do you know anything about keyword filtering for resumes? Is that something that's happening that we should be aware of?
I am not totally aware of that. I think based on the context, maybe just making sure that you have certain experience so that you pass sort of the initial process. Is that maybe what it is?
Maybe let's bring it back to what about when you go through a job description and there are certain words that pop up? What about those types of keywords? Did you put those words back into your cover letter? Is that something that they're looking for?
Definitely. That's something that I talk about in the book, is that there are certain things that job postings will list. There are certain words that they'll say more than once. And if you notice a theme in their job posting or in the about the company section of their website, if there are certain things that they say over and over again, highlighting that in your resume is just a way to show, again, that you've been thoughtful and that you will fit in seamlessly with their established culture, their company. So finding out what their requirements are, taking that time to read job descriptions. I think some of us, when we're frantically trying to find a job, we just look at the title of the job, and if that fits what we're looking for, then we just hit apply. But it is important to be thoughtful in not just sending your resume everywhere, sending it to the places that you can personalize your resume and your cover letter to fit into. You want to make it so that it's easy for them to say yes. It's easy for them to see you sitting in their company and adding to their production.
Okay, great. And we have another question from Julianne Keller, and she asks, how can you get a sense for work culture at a particular company you're going into an interview for, given that their own information, whether it's on their website or in the job description, will most likely be more processed and packaged than the real deal? So kind of like looking on Glassdoor, what kind of tips do you have for really finding out what the work culture would be at a company before you apply?
Sure. I think just like we're putting our best foot forward in an interview, a company is also doing that. They're making sure that they're highlighting all their best parts. And there's not always a way to find exactly what the culture is going to be like, but an important part of a job interview is making sure that you also like the company. That's sort of part of balancing the power that we talk about, where you want to make sure, even though you really want a job and you will take any job, sometimes we feel that desperate, you want to make sure that you're going to be happy in this organization. And so bringing thoughtful questions to an interview not only shows that you've taken time to research them, but it also gives you an opportunity to listen for keywords that are maybe deal breakers for you, or something that you really want to hear back from the company that you're going to work for. So when you're thinking about walking into an interview, have questions prepared that are more thoughtful than just, what are you looking for from this person? But really asking them about themselves, really trying to understand from different people. Somebody in a more executive position is going to have glowing things to say, whereas if you're sort of lower down on the totem pole, maybe you have a more realistic view of the company. And so as much as you can, ask those thoughtful questions to as many people as you can, so that you can get a broad sense of the central themes that everyone feels and the themes that maybe just certain people feel.
Okay, so you think it's okay that when you're at an interview, I'm sure that you come with a few questions in mind to figure out about their culture, but it's okay to just ask follow-up questions and continue that conversation while you're on site?
Definitely. I think it shows that you are taking this job as seriously as they are. You really want to make sure that you are the right fit for them as much as they are for you. And showing them that you're taking that seriously is always going to be helpful. And then, like you mentioned, you can go online. A lot of companies have reviews from former employees on Glassdoor. I say that with a little bit of an asterisk, because former employees sometimes tend to be a little bit more disgruntled than the rest of them. So take it with a grain of salt, but it's always a good idea to get sort of all of that information and to have that inform your decision as much as the answers that they gave you during the interview.
But you do recommend Glassdoor as a good source to figure out more about a company and its culture.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Our next question is from Jose Garcia. It says, I have a BS cognitive science and bachelor's degree in psychology, but my work experience is in retail and hospitality. So he's looking to get into a completely different field, which is UX. So should he use previous job experience, or use that space to talk about projects related to UX research and courses related to getting a job in UX? So basically, I'm sure you can come from a lot of different backgrounds, and sometimes you're jumping into a new career. And I know we touched on this a little bit before, but how do you spin your past experiences so that they pertain to the job you're applying for?
Definitely. I think a couple things. First, when you have sort of universal skills that people are looking for: project management, problem solving, team management, across department relationships. These are all things that happen in retail, definitely in hospitality, that will be useful to any team. So highlighting again those sort of soft skills that we were talking about, but also I think there is room to tell stories on your resume if you want to talk about a project, how you approached that project, what the results were for that project. You don't necessarily have to commit to just the typical bullet point resume. Telling the stories of the projects that you've included and why you've included them is a way to show that maybe you don't have extensive experience, but you have useful experience that really gave you a better understanding of what that job entails or how to approach problems. I think that there's an opportunity for that you can use on your resume.
Okay, so basically at any point in our lives, we always have the opportunity to use our past experiences to help us with our future experiences, right?
Definitely.
Okay, great. So we always have something new to look forward to and new growth. So I think that's very positive. Crystal's asking, could you tell us a story about maybe one of the worst interview experiences and then one of the best ones?
Sure.
Information here.
I had, this is funny, this happened to me recently. There was a job that I was applying for, and I was brought in. This was the third interview that I was doing. And I was brought in to talk to two people who I had already talked to. And the two of them asked me sort of the same questions they had already asked me. And I was giving the same answer. And the whole time, the one of the people was on their phone texting the entire time, which was a very awkward experience for me because why am I talking if you're not listening? Yeah. And then I went down to talk to a third person who was brand new and was asking questions. And that person got 3 different phone calls and answered those 3 phone calls during the interview, which totally threw off the mood of the entire thing and made it hard to sort of get a groove going and get that conversation started because it was always being interrupted. It was a very weird situation, and I don't know if it happens a lot, but it was one of those situations where I felt like, I wonder if they're testing me to see if I keep my cool, or because this was sort of a client-facing role. And so I didn't know whether it was a test or not. But that's one of those situations where it helps to keep your cool, to remember that they're just asking you questions about you and you know these answers, and they can't really throw you off your game if you know sort of who you are, your work philosophy, how you want to answer your questions, and how you want to talk about your experience. So it was definitely weird. It went well, which was also surprising to me. But
I'm sure that you were calm and that you showed them that you were able to deal with that. And they were.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to ask them later if it was a test, but I decided not to in case it wasn't. And then I would just be calling them rude. And then one of the best ones that I had was actually with, it was 2 people interviewing me. And it was one of those times where we really got to talk about philosophy and trending topics in the industry. I think that we can all sort of give the buzzwords, we can talk about impressive projects that we have, but when you're talking to people who you're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis, if you get this job and you get to have those sort of conversations where you're almost collaborating, you're almost trading ideas back and forth, I think that is a great way to show your expertise, that you're able to talk to these ideas with the people that are interviewing with, and it makes a sort of a bond that you guys have already had a mini collaboration session. That's what it felt like to me. And it gave great talking points for the follow-up email that I sent. I got to send them links to podcasts and different writers. So it really felt like a genuine conversation. And it felt like we were really working together to decide if this was a good fit. And we were both giving those sort of positive feedback. So that was one of my favorite interviews, and also one of my favorite places that I've ever worked.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that and being so open with your response.
Yeah, definitely.
Our next question is from Juliana Keller, and she asks, if you truly do not have an answer to a question asked, How can you turn it into an opportunity to give more information about yourself without seeming like you're trying to avoid the question?
I think that it's really important to be as authentic as possible when you don't know something. I think that there is something to be said for taking accountability and saying, look, I've never had to do anything with, that program. Let's say that they're asking you, have you ever had experience with this program? No, but I've had something similar in, if they have asked you, in my line of work, I do content. So sometimes they'll ask if you've ever worked with this particular email service. And I'll say, no, but I've worked with this one, which is similar. And I'd love to figure out the differences. And I'd love to know why you picked that one. So sort of turning it back on them and asking them why they feel sort of passionate about that philosophy, that program, that problem solving skill. These are things that you can sort of ask them to give you more context and to let them know that, yes, I want to learn more about it and I'm interested to hear your perspective. So that you're saying like, no, I don't know anything about that. I know something similar and I would love to learn more from you because you are the expert in that. I think that's a great approach to take when you don't necessarily know the answer, because you're right, avoiding it completely is sort of awkward, and they can definitely tell when you're just totally avoiding the question.
Well, I like that, being authentic and being honest about the situation. And I like your suggestion of being able to bring it back as that opportunity to ask them, why is this program important? Is it important for me to have this skill? What should I do to learn? So it really gives you the opportunity to show your eagerness and your dedication.
Yeah, and it gives them an opportunity to see what happens when you don't know something, because inevitably when we're in a job, there's going to be something that comes across our desk that we have no idea how to approach. And they've already got a sense that, one, you're totally willing to speak up and say, look, I don't know, I need help, which saves everyone a lot of time. And then two, that you have that curiosity and you want to learn for yourself so that the next time you'll be able to do it on your own. And those are two positive things that any team would be lucky to have.
So it's okay not to always have the answer, but just be open and honest.
Right.
Our next question is from Saharith Noisuan. I'm a new grad. I guess I have sent out at least 100 resumes. I've never gotten an interview. Any tips on how to get your resume to stand out?
I definitely feel that. That is so frustrating, and I'm sorry that you're in the middle of that. I think that you're starting at the right place. I think that if your resume is not catching the attention of that many companies, you really need to figure out how to restructure, how to tell different stories, and also, like we mentioned, taking that time to maybe fit your resume for particular positions. If you see, like we said, certain keywords on the job posting on the company's website, include those in your resume. Update it for that job that you are applying to so that it's a little bit more personal. It has a little more context. It brings life to your personality. And I think you'll find that the more you tailor a resume to that job posting while still being authentic and truthful, the better chance you have to get noticed. Again, like I said, sometimes when a certain job has a high volume of applicants, things start to look the same. So the more that you can do to make your resume more of a story, put more context to who you are, I think the better you're going to stand out.
Okay, great. And our next question comes from Juliana Keller. You mentioned reaching out after you find out that you didn't get the job that you were interviewing for. So how can you find out that you didn't get the job if somebody doesn't follow up with you?
I think that I actually haven't had the experience of, you'll usually get, in my experience, you'll get sort of a universal letter that will say, we've decided to go a different direction. It's hard to get a response from that because that usually comes from just the general HR email. So you'll have sort of less luck getting information from them. But if you have an actual point of contact, those are the best people. They'll usually send you an email that says that they're going a different direction and you can follow up. I think it's important to, even when you get those letters, I always say, thank you for your time. I'm glad that you found the perfect candidate for you. I hope we get to work together in the future. Again, that keeps that positive, open line of communication open for these people in your industry. And then it also gives you that opportunity to say, are there things that I can work on? What are the main things that kept me from getting this job? So I think, to answer your question, when you get sort of no response or from the generic general HR email account, then it's probably not going to get you an answer. But when you have one person as a point of contact, those are a great time to ask those questions. It won't work for every position or every job interview, but there will be some times where you'll have the opportunity to ask those questions. And when you get it, it's important to ask so that you can always continue to improve.
So let's say you have a job interview, you think it went well, and a week goes by. Is there like a golden time or like the good time that you can give that follow-up? Let's say that you do know who the recruiter is or you do know the person you spoke to. When's the appropriate time to send an email and just ask for a little feedback or, what's going on?
Yeah, I talk about that in the book, that there's no playing hard to get when we're talking about jobs, right? You want to seem enthusiastic. You want to make sure that you stay top of mind for them. So I think asking before you leave the interview, asking, is there a time frame that I should expect to hear from you? They'll usually say a week or 2 weeks, or if you don't hear from us by this date, follow up with us. And definitely do that. It'll give you an opportunity to stay connected to them, and it'll give them sort of a reminder to update you as much as possible. I think constantly bugging them, don't send things every day, spread it out with maybe a week. If they don't give you a specific date, follow up within a week, and then you can continue to maybe do that once a week, as long as they're maybe not responding. But I think that it's never going to hurt you to show that you're interested, showing that you want this job, as long as you're not being, excessive in those reaching out.
Sure, that makes sense. And our last question of the night is from Yolanda Jasso. What's the best way to decline a job offer? So maybe you interviewed at a few different places, got a couple job offers, and one just isn't the right fit for you, or you decide over a job over the other one. What do you do in that situation?
First of all, congratulations. It's a great place to be. I think that, again, leading with being grateful for the opportunity. These people have taken time to really get to know you. And I think it's perfectly fine. And I think a good thing to say, I picked this job because it felt like a better culture fit, and I really want you to have a candidate who fits perfectly into your job. Not saying things like, I just didn't want this job, or this place has better benefits. I don't think there's really space to be authentic in that way, if that's your answer. But I think letting them know that it has to do with the right fit for you and the company is a great way to let them know that that these are things that are important to you. You're taking this seriously. It's not just a decision that you made lightly, that you do really appreciate the time, because some industries are small that you might circle back around and be applying to this company in a few years. So you want to make sure you've ended on a positive note, that they have a good taste in their mouth for you and the way that you handle things. So I think, again, to sort of summarize what I said, because I'm super wordy, say thank you, thank them for their time, and just let them know that there was a better fit and that you are certain that they're going to be able to find that perfect candidate for their organization.
So always be gracious and kind, because that's just part of the interviewing process, that sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't, but we're all still human beings. So, treat each other with respect.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering all these questions, McKenna. This was really insightful and really wonderful, and I'm sure that everybody appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for all your great questions. That was awesome.
Absolutely. So now we're going to go through the raffle winners for tonight. So Congratulations to Mia Kramer. You have won the 1-year license to Adobe Creative Suite. Congratulations. And we have 3 audience members today who won a 90-minute consultation session with McKenna. And those are Jose Garcia, Saharith Nasuwan, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name, Katie Hoehn, and 2 people who won McKenna's book today, we're just talking, are Sherry Henkin and Tiffany Olay. And we have 1 mystery item that goes to Rowan Penn. So congratulations to everybody. We will be in touch with you for claiming your prizes. And to kind of follow up with the ending of tonight, this has been such an incredible experience for all of us. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure that everything we talked about helped so many listeners, and these are just experiences that we all go through in the interview process. I'll definitely be using your guidebook in the future too. So thank you so much for being here today. This is really amazing.
Thank you very much. I had a lot of fun.
And can you let our audience know how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, my website is mckennabailey.net. You can contact me there about if you want to do a consultation session or look at all the books that I published. And then I'm on Twitter, McKenna_Bailey.
Perfect. And how do people get in touch with you if they want to do a 90-minute consultation? What's the best?
The contact page on my website. And if you put in the subject line UXPLA, I will give you a little discount for the consultation sessions.
Perfect. Thank you. And if anybody wants to get in touch with UXPA LA, we're going to have all of our information posted as well. And just to let you know, next Wednesday at Father's office in Culver City, we are having a happy hour. So feel free to RSVP on Meetup. We'll also have a video of this event posted soon, and we'll announce that over Meetup as well. So thank you so much, McKenna, for being here. This was such an amazing night. Thank you to our panel. Let me bring everybody back on here to say bye. Can everyone come back? Here we are. So thank you, everybody, so much. This was such an incredible night. Thanks for joining us, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.